Okay, folks, so now I'm going to be talking about the jaws and the teeth of a great white shark. Now, unfortunately, I'm in, not unfortunately, but I'm in Sweden at the moment, and I'm not in Mossel Bay in South Africa. I came over to Sweden because of the coronavirus situation, and so I'm working here because there's nothing for me to do in South Africa right now because everything that was shut down. So that is why I find myself in Sweden. I've got a house here in Sweden. And so I'm sitting right now and I'm giving this lecture series from Sweden. But the unfortunate thing is that I was not able to bring a jaw with me on the aeroplane and teeth, etc., etc., because I'd love to have had a specimen of a great white shark's jaw to really show you how they work. But in any case, I'm going to explain to you. Now, the jaws and the teeth of a great white shark are very interesting. First of all, the jaw itself is cartilage. The actual jaw is cartilage. And being cartilage, it's flexible. And you can understand why it's flexible in a minute when I tell you. The jaw is also not attached to the rest of the skeleton. So unlike us, our jaw is attached to our skull, the rest of our head. And it's bone, and it's pretty solid. And if somebody whacks you hard enough or you get hit hard on the jaw, you can break the jaw. And it can snap from the rest of your skull. And that obviously hurts very, very much. But a great white shark's jaw is not attached to the skull, which is important, and it's also got to do with the fact that it's cartilage and flexible. So let me just tell you about that right now. Now you imagine, here's a great white shark, his jaw is wide open, and there's a 400 or 500 pound seal on the surface. The shark weighs 2,500 pounds, comes up from the depths at 20, 30 miles an hour and hits that seal. It hits that seal like that. Boom, whap. That shark's coming up from the depths and hits that seal as hard as it can, hits the seal so hard that it actually lifts the seal out the water. A seal that weighs 500 pounds or 250 kilograms. Now, can you imagine the pressure on the jaw, on the shark's jaw when he hits that seal? Can you imagine the forces when that shark comes up and hits a big seal like that? Now, if the jaw was connected to the rest of the skull, and if the jaw was bone, more often than not, the shark could break its jaw. But the fact that it's cartilage and the fact that it's not attached to the skull, that jaw is able to absorb that attack impact energy. So it can actually absorb it without breaking the jaw. And a great white shark with a broken jaw is a great white shark that can't feed, and it's a great white shark that's going to die. So that is very, very interesting, and this is what a lot of people never think about. The jaw is cartilage, not attached to the skull, and it can absorb the incredible forces during an attack on a large prey item. Okay, so that is the jaw. But now I get to the teeth. Now, unfortunately, I could not bring teeth, and as I explained to you before, I don't even have a great white shark's tooth, but I could easily get one. But that is what a great white shark's tooth would look like. It's triangular in shape, and serrated. Now, this is a model of one, or a mock-up one. It's actually a fridge magnet, believe it or not. But if this is a real great white shark's jaw, these serrations here and the tip of the tooth, not jaw, sorry, if this was a real great white shark's tooth, the serrations here and the tip would be razor sharp. And you can see that this is a steak knife. Most shark species do not have these serrations along the edges of the tooth. There are a number of shark species that do, but most of them don't. And this steak knife is there to go into flesh, tough flesh, and cut through it. Now, a mako shark for instance, has got these long, and I've got a beautiful Mako shark's jaw in Cape Town, and I couldn't bring that either. Massive Mako shark's jaw. But the teeth on a Mako shark are very long and narrow and kind of like bent, and they are razor sharp. I mean, that if you whack your hand on those teeth will rip you to pieces. The shark doesn't have to bite you. They are razor sharp, but they're long, narrow, no serrations, and that is because the Mako shark primarily feeds on fish. Squid, mackerel, tuna, sailfish, that kind of thing. That's what it feeds on primarily. It's a pelagic shark, and that's what it does. Most Mako sharks you'll find in deep water. Okay. Now, a great white shark, what's interesting about the jaw is that, so what I'm trying to tell you, a Mako shark has got multiple rows of teeth because those teeth are almost like a trap. So it'll grab a fish like a mackerel and it'll shred it and swallow it. And that's how they feed. So it's almost like a trap. But a great white shark's jaw is not a trap. The great white shark's jaw is a cutting machine. So you got the top jaw like that. And in the top jaw you have the teeth. And you only have one row of usable teeth. I know you've watched these movies and you've read these books and they talk about the multiple rows of teeth ripping into the person and shredding them to pieces. Great white shark's got one usable row of teeth at a time, which makes it very efficient. Because if you take a steak and you take 3 steak knives and you start trying to cut that steak, you're going to make a mess of the steak. You take one sharp steak knife and you can slice that steak very, very nicely and easily. And that is how a great white shark's jaw is designed. The top jaw is designed, it grabs the prey and it shakes. And as it shakes like that, these serrations do the work, and it slices through the thick blubber or the thick skin of a seal. It goes through bone. It can take out large chunks of thick blubber from a whale, and that top jaw does that, and it cuts a clean chunk of tissue away from its prey. But lying behind that top row of usable teeth are other teeth in waiting. And a shark will shed teeth. A shark can go through 20,000, 25,000 teeth in its lifespan. Because it has rows of teeth, but the other rows in a great white shark are lying flat in the jaw. So they're actually lying flat up against the palate or the roof of the mouth. And they grow like fingernails, basically. They grow like fingernails, and they just constantly grow. And if a great white shark goes at a seal and it breaks one of his teeth off. And the other thing is, you can see over here, this part over here, that is not rooted into the, what do you call it? It's not rooted into the jaw. So it won't snap off here, for instance, and then leave a jagged, horrible piece of tooth sticking out. The whole tooth will come out. The teeth are kind of super glued, for want of a better term. They're kind of super glued to the jaw, but this is really strong super glue. And if a shark bites a seal and one of its teeth are dislodged, and very often when we're working with great white sharks, we're using tuna heads or whatever, and the shark bites it and we get the tuna head away, we very often find teeth embedded in the tuna head, so the tooth has actually come away from the jaw. So the super glue has lost its grip as such. And so it loses that tooth, and then the tooth behind it, lying flat against the roof of the mouth, will move forward and take the lost tooth's place. But even if the shark doesn't lose its tooth or its teeth, eventually it'll shed that tooth, because the other one will slowly move into place to take the place of the usable tooth in the top jaw at the time, and that tooth will be shed and will just drop to the ocean floor, and sometimes the shark will even swallow its own tooth, etc., etc. So that's how it works. The top jaw one usable row of teeth. And when they're young, when the great white sharks are young, the teeth in the top jaw are quite narrow. They're long and narrow. And that is because they're feeding on smaller prey. But as they get larger, the teeth widen out. And I'm talking about the teeth in the top jaw. The teeth widen out and widen out because they start feeding on larger prey and different kind of prey items such as seals and dolphins, and they start feeding on whales, etc. So the teeth morph and change as the shark becomes larger. Now a tooth like that would probably come from a shark close to between 3.5 and 4 meters long. All right. Now in the bottom jaw, it's exactly the same situation, except that in the bottom jaw, the teeth are narrower. So that would be a top jaw tooth. A bottom jaw tooth is much narrower than a top jaw tooth. And in the bottom jaw, they do use several rows of teeth at the same time. So it's usually about 3 rows of teeth that are actually in use at any given time in the bottom jaw of a great white shark. And they're long, they're also serrated, but they're long and narrow. And they are designed to anchor the prey. So here's a seal, and the shark comes up, and the bottom jaw anchors the prey. So it actually, those teeth go into the seal and anchor the seal. The top jaw slams down, and then the shark does this. And the top jaw, the teeth in the top jaw go through the flesh, go through the tissue, and remove a chunk of tissue from the prey item. But the bottom jaw teeth also shed, and they also get lost, and they're replaced exactly the same way as I described in the top jaw. So that is how their jaws and teeth work. Very, very interesting. It's an incredible mechanism. The pressures that the jaw can take, because it's flexible and because it's not attached to the skull, are incredible. And then they never run out of teeth. A great white shark has always got a nice, good row of teeth in its mouth. So there we go. That's what I can tell you on their, tell you about their jaws and teeth. And yeah, I hope you find that interesting. And what video was that? My goodness, that was video number 12. Oh, I almost forgot. Video number 12.